Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. So glad you could join me. With me this morning is Dr. Michael Neal, the founder and CEO of Build My Team, and a practicing optometrist in Hawley, Pennsylvania. Frustrated by years of hiring missteps that stalled the growth of his private practice, Dr. Neal set out to reimagine the hiring process, modeling it after elite organizations like Disney and the Four Seasons. What began as a personal solution evolved into a proven hiring system. Today, Build My Team serves clients across 8 healthcare professions in over 40 U.S. states and Canada, helping medical and dental professionals hire smarter, reduce turnover, and build thriving teams. Dr. Neal's breakthrough came when he stopped prioritizing experience and instead focused on identifying core performance capabilities like learning agility, mindset, and natural strengths. His data-driven approach to hiring has helped transform practices by getting the right people in the right seats, leading to greater retention, profitability, and peace of mind for providers. Through his work, Dr. Neal empowers healthcare leaders to solve hiring challenges, assess team strengths, and build high-performing teams so they can stop firefighting and start scaling. And I am truly pleased to have him here with me this morning as a guest. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Let me start off. I'm trying to add a personal touch this year, Mike, as I go down the podcasting pathway. Tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up and what were some of the fundamental influences in your life?
Grew up in a tiny little town of 500 people in Western Canada. We were so small, didn't have a traffic light. My high school grad class was 18 people, believe it or not. That is surprising for folks. The things I took out of that is that there's a really incredible culture in a small town like that. I describe it as us and we versus I and me at the time. We were all a team. When you live in an area like that, whether you like it or not, you can't do it yourself. You just absolutely can't do it yourself. I think that unknowingly at the time provided a perfect launch point for me to be so interested in leadership and teams.
Well, many times where you come from really helps you set a path for the future.
It sure does.
Let me ask you this, Mike. You created Build My Team to solve your own hiring challenges in private practice. What was the breaking point that made you say, there has to be a better way?
Oh boy. We had a fire in 2008 and the entire practice burned right down to the ground. Yeah, that was tough. Very, very difficult. We had some team members that stayed with us, some that didn't. And we were unknowingly hiring poor performers. We didn't have a system to identify high performers. We were interviewing folks using resumes, work history based approach. And, John, it was terrible. We got terrible results. We didn't know we were doing it wrong because we didn't know what right was. We didn't know what success looked like. There's that old quote, I don't know if it's Vince Lombardi or not. The man at the bottom of the mountain doesn't know what the view from the top looks like. And here I was waving up to the top from the very bottom.
So what was your initial thing? You took a step back.
Yeah.
You saw this is not working for us. What was the first step that you took to change your hiring practice?
Well, before even taking a step, I was in executive coaching at the time. And the group that I was in with, it's called Strategic Coach, wonderful organization. They had a team that was very similar to the type of team I wanted. And everybody was absolutely terrific. Supreme customer service, very detail oriented. They unknowingly built a stellar team for healthcare, which was the problem I was trying to solve at the time. After being exposed to that, I took a look at how they created their teams, talked candidly with them, and got some of their approaches, and then took a look at how they were doing it in detail, modeled that, looked at how the Four Seasons were doing it. Disney is quite the organization in terms of how they get their team members perpetually happy. Same with the Four Seasons. And that's what I wanted, a happy, high-performing team.
One of your biggest insights, as I understand it, was shifting away from hiring based solely on experience. What performance factors do you now prioritize that predict long-term success?
Well, the best way I can think of to describe this is the fit of the candidate to the fit that the business requires. And think in terms of mitts versus gloves. Like you put your hand into a mitt, well, it fits you on your thumb and it fits you on your fingers. Kinda. Like one size fits everybody. You're not going to be a performer if you need to use your hands all day long wearing mitts. Then imagine a pair of gloves. That's a much better fit. Each finger has its own little home. Then imagine a pair of gloves that are custom fit for you with special materials so that you have complete dexterity. I'm getting towards a surgical reference here, where you can wear gloves and have virtually the same level of use of your hands that if you weren't wearing gloves. And what I mean by that is the fit. So in a business, when you have somebody who is asked to show up for work every day and be someone else, be somebody different than who they are, be what the business requires, but not who they really are, it's work. It's cognitive overload. It is emotional overload. Why don't these people stay? Like, why do they leave the job? I can't figure out why they leave the job. Of course they leave the job because it's not for them. It's flat out not for them. And there's really no way that I've ever found in an interview process to identify that. So the build my team approach is to use an automated system for our clients. We write the job description, we publish it to 20 different job boards. We get oodles of people apply, and we're going to reject about 97% of them on average. How do we know who's the person to pick and who's not? It's through our assessment process. It's completely automated. So at the end of that process, our software can give a thumbs up on the candidates that can do a great job, the performers for the position. It's really that detailed. Now, we're not making decisions based on asking them flat out, hey, John, you good at this job? Of course not. Everybody's going to say yes to that. It's far more detailed and insightful, and it's based upon a psychological subset called psychometrics. So when we get those results, we know if they can do the job or not. And it's based almost primarily on their speed of learning and their natural strengths and talents. And then some, what we call our knockout questions, like, do they live 60 miles from a job that pays $15 an hour? How long are they planning to stay there for? Can they actually work the hours that your business needs? Yes or no? You'd be shocked at how many people don't pass our process based solely on they can't work those hours. This is an all-in approach that is completely data-driven to have our software make the decision on who can do the job and who cannot. There's no preferences. There's no nepotism. One of the buzzwords now is DEI. It's a lightning rod. Our software doesn't care. It doesn't have an opinion. Can this person do the job exceptionally well or not? We don't know if they're male or female. We don't know what race they are. We don't know if they're tall, short, in between. None of that matters. Is this person a performer? Yes or no? If it's a yes, they get a thumbs up. That's our approach.
I have to ask this question because it's something that I've focused on in all my leadership work, particularly in the last couple of years. So I've got to ask this question. Anywhere along the line, when you're considering people,
Mhm.
is there a way that you can make a judgment based on the individual values of an individual as it compares to the organization's values?
Interesting question. We use a tool where we're assessing their mindset. And that's our first pass. Do they have a service-based mindset? Not necessarily a values match, but are these people the kind of folks who want to contribute on a daily basis? Are they interested in helping people? I get a lot of pushback on that from clients. What do you mean? Are they interested in helping people? No, John and listeners, most people in the world don't lean towards helping folks and serving others, believe it or not. That's something that, especially coming from a healthcare background, we think everybody wants to help other people. The main thing nowadays with the types of folks applying is they want to make a difference. They're not looking for jobs that don't have impact. That is one of the biggest differences to attract people to these positions. They have to make an impact. I'll use a healthcare practice as an example. Your impact is baked in. You can't not make an impact. You're helping people all day long. You're improving lives all day long. Certainly there'll be some exceptions to that, but you throw an 80-20 rule at it, you can hit 95%, not 80, on helping people all day long. And that is extremely satisfying for the type of candidate that we put into those positions. That's kind of our bigger picture filter, if you will, on the values and what people are prioritizing for their positions.
So interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. It's fun.
Over the course of the last 2 years, I've really focused on the three things that people in any industry are looking for. Number one is values alignment. Does the organization care about the same things I care about? Okay. Number two is being involved in the decision-making processes of the organization.
Mhm.
Do I have impact?
Right.
My theme this year is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. So
Yeah.
the whole idea is, do they extract meaning from the things that they do? Are they involved? Do they make a difference? And the third one is they want training and learning that advances their professional career. So they may go away for a couple of days and learn some new technique. To me, those are the real prime things of what people want. They don't want to just come get a paycheck anymore. COVID completely changed the mindset on that.
Yes.
The idea that, hey, listen, I just want to get a paycheck. No, I need to have a values-driven approach to what I'm going to do at work. So it's very interesting. I'd love to get your comments on that.
Well,
on the big three.
So on the learning side, we measure their speed of learning. The candidates we bring through Build My Team learn quickly, not too quickly, because those folks get bored and leave their job. But we don't hire people based on experience. We bring people in generally that are new to the field. They learn incredibly quickly, and people might be thinking, "Oh, I've got to train them." Yeah, you do. The great news is they're trainable. Surprise! Like we know with 97% certainty that these people will do a fantastic job. And you say, "Well, I don't want to train them." Well, you're going to have to anyway, because a person coming in with experience has to be untrained and then trained, which isn't double the amount of work. It can be triple, quadruple, quintuple. It doesn't work. On the COVID side, I could not agree with you more about the meaning. I see this on a day-to-day basis in our practice. One of the things I love to do is, I'll give you an example, and I'm allowed to use this publicly. We had a 12-year-old autistic kid came in January, regular exam, photos were taken, optic nerves in the back of his eye looked normal. Came back in either June or July, couldn't walk properly, had all kinds of clumsiness, slurring his speech. The parents were trying to figure out what was going on. Brought him in for an eye exam for some reason. Did his exam. As soon as I sat down and saw the pictures, my heart just fell to the floor. The kid's optic nerves look like little volcanoes. He had an extraordinarily serious, life-threatening condition. Extremely rare. He did not have it at all in January. It developed over the course of 6-7 months. To give you an example of how serious this was, I told the folks they have to go home, they have to go immediately to the Children's Hospital, 2+ hour drive. And they there was essentially no choice in this matter. They went home, packed a bag, went to the hospital. It took 3 days to plan that fella's neurosurgery. That's how complex it was. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because after I was done being horrified and trying my best not to cry, I took the entire team aside, and they knew something awful was going on. The entire show stopped to help this kid. I took them aside and I said, look, here's what's going on. I showed them the pictures and I had permission to do this. And I said, you don't know what you're looking at, but this is one of the most awful things an eye doctor can ever see, especially in a kid. They were just shocked, like tears. We have an office full of a lot of moms. We have young kids. So people were just crying. I showed them the pictures and I said, yeah, I got the credit for all of this, but you answered the phone and figured out how to run their insurance so they would come in for the exam. You got them scheduled. You were the technician. I'll be blunt here. On an autistic kid, sometimes a lot of practices kind of push the can down the road as far as looking at the backs of their eyes. The kid would have died had my team not taken the pictures. They got the pictures. So I went to everybody in the building and I said, here's your contribution to saving Leo's life. Well, there's not a dry eye in the place, not including my own. Nobody went home that day looking for 50 cents an hour more.
I agree. I've been blessed with great podcast guests. People who've endured amazing trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
And I've come out of with this newfound recognition. One of the key things that organizations should hire for is heart.
Yeah.
We know what heart looks like, right? You're rooting for your favorite football team. They're down by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
There's 5 minutes to go in the game. And they come back and win the game. And you say, how in God's name did they do that? It's incredible. Well, everybody looks at them and says, you know what? That team has heart. And I think what I'm learning is the ability of people to get through tough times, to deal with the uncomfortable or the downright horrific and challenging, are the people that we should be looking at to hire, because they know how to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to get through stuff. There is this notion, Mike, that there's fight or flight. You know this, right? The human has 2 choices, fight or flight. And the answer is no, there's a third choice.
Yeah.
And the third choice is dig in and endure. Sometimes you can't fight, and sometimes you can't run away, and you just have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You see this in people who are in jobs they really don't like, but they're the breadwinner and they're putting food on the table and holding it down. And to me, that's a very interesting perspective. And it brought to mind this child, Leo, who I hope is still with us.
Yep, doing much better.
Wonderful to hear. When you say, wow, this young man has gotten through some pretty interesting things. I had a guest named Tamsin Hall on who runs something called the Neurodiversity Academy in the UK. And we talked about just be open to people. You know, Leo may be 12 or 13 now, but when Leo's 20, 25, he very well may be an incredible asset to some organization.
Oh, yeah.
In his ability, not only to get through things, but to really use his natural talents to deal with an organization. I'd love to get your reflection on this.
Well, everybody has them, right? That's the most amazing thing. You may think in terms of, well, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at this. Okay, you might be right. What are you good at? Most people have no idea. It sounds simple. Why don't you have any idea? Because it comes so simple to you, you don't even think it's special.
Right.
So when we're working with these candidates and they run through our assessment process, they get a copy of the results. That's part of the good karma, pay it forward approach we take with our candidates. But it really does, in a shocking way, it tells us how few people have any clue whatsoever what they're good at. Folks out there in real life, without the build my team process, are applying for jobs because of proximity, because of time sensitivity, because they have a friend who said it was not, like, the amount of actual thought and research put into job applications now. Oh, good grief. If it's 5 or 10% of what it was years ago, I'd be surprised. It's more of an automated thing where I'm going to click the button until I get an interview. That's the reinforcement on the whole job application process. From an employer standpoint, to call it a colossal waste of time is underselling it. Perhaps galactic. The amount of people in our process, we lose approximately 50% of people after they receive a text on their cell phone. They get it within 5 seconds of clicking the apply button to the jobs on the job boards. Why do we lose that many? We ask them to do something. Click a link. You know what that something is? Clicking a link, which everybody who has a cell phone is naturally inclined to be capable of doing. We lose half. They don't want to click a link. So it's not the clicking link that's a problem. It's we asked you to take action to see if you're the right candidate for the job. Well, they just tapped out. They know they're not. Imagine in real life, without the Build My Team process, you take 50% of your candidates, they don't want to even come in for an interview. They don't want anything to do with this. And that was one of the most shocking things to me as our system started to scale is, why are you even applying? Why'd you hit the button if you don't want to get off your butt? You know what I mean? But that's half. Yeah.
It's so interesting to me because the other side of this is, and credit to you and how you do this, is that if you give someone a report, feedback, and you say, well, you're really not the right kind of person we're looking for in this job, but they get some feedback, that's a great thing, because just because they don't fit your organization doesn't mean they can go someplace else and look for something more in line with what they need and what they're really good at.
Right. And taking that one step further, what we found in our own practice, because we have exact records of everything that happens, was that almost 50% who applied for job A were a better fit for job B. If we had 2 jobs open, they have no idea what they're good at. So what our Build My Team process does is it allows us to say, okay, you applied for job A, you'd be fantastic at job B. What do you think about job B? Well, they all say yes. They don't care which job it is. They really don't. What they want in our particular hiring environment is they want to work indoors with air conditioning, a computer, people, and get a solid lunch every day versus standing on the side of the road as a road flagger holding a sign in the baking heat. You know, we had one person a while ago, she joined our front desk team. She was ecstatic about the front desk. And we said, well, sometimes patients get upset with you. And she just laughed. I remember she just laughed. She said, I used to work at a deli counter at the grocery store. Is anybody going to throw ham in my face today? I said, well, probably not. Won't rule it out, but probably not. And that to her, like a little bit of people, not so wonderful people interaction was nothing, because it was vastly different than what she was used to.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Let me ask you this. I think I'm sensing this, so, please correct me. This system the software system that you use, it sounds like there's an AI integration with it. Is that a fair statement?
We've got some secret sauce. There's no doubt about it.
I'm not asking for state secrets here.
The AI doesn't make the final decisions. The algorithm gives the thumbs up on the people we know can do the job. But there's one step past that. We send those finalists a video interview. It's a one-way video interview. They get to record it on their phone and submit it, and then our team watches that video interview. The results aren't released to the practice or our clients per se, but what we're looking for, and we don't care what they look like. We don't care about the male, female, race. I don't care if they're green and with little antennas on their head. None of that stuff matters. What matters is how they're going to represent. So we ask these questions, the same questions on every single candidate. Why do we do that? Because we're looking for how they respond, not necessarily what they say, a little bit of that, 20% perhaps, 80% on the how. Are they talking like this, nice and slow? Do they talk really quickly like I generally do? Are they confident with their speech? One of the things we saw very early on in the video interviews is people doing a video interview, believe it or not, in their bathroom, standing in the tub. Yeah, that look on your face. I love it, John. I love telling the story. Why are they doing a video interview standing in their tub?
Reverberation.
Keep going.
where they can get away and be quiet, where they
Okay.
can cut themselves off from the rest of the world.
What else?
Let's see. So you're in the tub, you're in your suit. Hopefully they don't have the shower on.
No.
You sound better. You are cut off from the rest of the household. Give
Lighting.
something.
It's the best lighting in the house.
The best lighting in the house.
So that threw us early on. We didn't know what to make of that. And then we started to see it over and over. The light bulb went on in our company. These are winners. These are A+ performers. They have virtually no resources. They are taking the tiny little tidbit of resources that they've got and they're optimizing the heck out of it.
What a great
They're making
thing.
themselves look fantastic in spite of all obstacles. This is the type of person you want working in your practice or your business or your whatever it might be. That's the type of A+ performer that we're looking for.
What?
Our team has had to explain that to client after client, but the light switch usually goes on. These are people who love to join a new company. They love the way that we hire. You ever want to attract A players, you make it really hard for them to get on your team. We're very diligent and specific about who we want on these teams. And that's how you attract some really wonderful people.
You know, I read this story the other day about a young woman who is teaching people using, I think I'm correctly saying she's using Google's Gemini AI system. She's teaching people how to get through the AI resume screening systems using Google's Gemini AI. What I found so ironic to the story was the hack for this kind of ingenuity or an ability to help people get through the AI screening system was that the resultant was that in order to hack that, you have to do person-to-person interviews again.
Yeah.
So in the sense, the way to hack AI is with the human element.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting perspective. And I thought, well, it's like things are coming back around again in a manner of speaking, using the interviews where people do a video recording, which I think is really good, is a good way to say, I want to see that person in front of me somehow.
Yes. It's a check and balance against a purely automated approach. It works exceptionally well. We have to learn how to use our own tool, but it works exceptionally well. And that's one of the reasons why our fits are so specific. Our team members stay vastly longer than folks coming through a regular hiring process. As far as the service goes, what we tend to see with our clients is that they hire one, maybe two people, they want to test it out. Maybe it's too good to be true, all those types of things. And then the switch flips. And as their team members in small businesses, people leave no matter what happens. It's the nature of it. So we minimize that quite well, but people will still transition. Maybe they move. Our clients, they pick up the phone or send an email. I need a new person in this role. Quick discussion with one of our team members and off we go. Approaching the hiring process like we do at Build My Team becomes a competitive advantage, an enormous competitive advantage for our clients. You can be that young woman standing dressed up in your suit jacket in a tub at 2 a.m. And by 8 a.m., 9 a.m. the next morning, you can have an interview. That's how fast this can move. One of the things I forgot to mention is to be decisive. The old days of hiring slowly and firing fast, that's one of the lines. If you hire slowly, you're dooming yourself to working solely with C and D players. Just the top performers, the A players, B+ players that Build My Team brings to the table, they're looking for decisive leadership. They want, they're magnetically attracted to this hiring process because they think, well, geez, if it's this tough for me to get on the team, they must have an amazing team that they're working with, that type of thing. But decisiveness is critical. In fact, that's why we use the texting method instead of email. And I'll give you an example internally to our own practice. When we have a candidate come over for a position, it's a showstopper. The first thing that happens is we try and bring them in that morning for an interview. We still do interviews. The reason being is we're trying to pick the best person. But it's Build My Team sends over candidate-wise. We know they can all do the job. We're just trying to pick the optimal person and see if any of the other candidates could do something else within the practice as well. So there's always those side benefits. That's how
Do you use your software system on professionals like other optometrists?
we
Do you use it
can.
on?
Just remember, our approach is to have a huge funnel to pour as many applicants in as possible because we're going to reject almost all of them. With professionals, it's done differently. What we're looking for there is to run the professional candidate through our process. It's not about rejection at that point. Any licensed professional could technically do the job, right? As long as you license in the state, et cetera. What we're doing there is finding out the strengths, natural strengths and talents. For example, when you're training that person, when they join your team, there's some level of training. What's their communication style like? How do we optimize their training for their strengths? And what that results in is a really fast ramp up relative to, here you go, best of luck type approach. And so that it can be used in professionals just differently.
I think one of the things that people sometimes don't realize, probably the HR people realize this more than anything else, is turnover is costly. It costs a lot of money when you've got turnover and you don't have the right candidates and you just keep rolling through people thinking there'll always be candidates. I'll just have to try to farm my way through it.
Right.
But hiring and firing costs a lot of money.
The number I have from the industry is between 12 to 14,000. That type of range is what it costs to bring somebody on, and rather rapidly in the span of 6-8 weeks, determine if they're going to stay, exit the team. And a lot of small businesses say, especially healthcare practices, there's no way it costs that much. Well, let's sit down and actually document it. This was an exercise we did within our own practice. Oh my goodness, I had no idea it was that expensive. Now, with several years under the belt to build my team doing the hiring, now when we do have turnover, you see the cost to the business in terms of somebody who moves or otherwise exits the ability to do the job. It's expensive, and minimizing that is always in the best interest of the business.
Well, I agree. We're getting close to the end here, and this has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it so much. I'd like to ask you my world famous question, and that is, if you had a magic wand and could wave it at any issue that you see in the world in which you work, what would that issue be, and why did you choose that?
Well, I think the ability to hire people using strengths and talents scaled in mass would change the world in ways we don't even realize. We couldn't fathom. It's not about solely productivity, just people happiness. Like actually going to work for the people who want to work, being extremely happy, doing well financially, because that comes with high performance, and going home to the kids, your hobbies, your cats, your dogs, whatever, just having an average day for an average person be so much better. Imagine what that would do to the world.
I absolutely agree. In my mission statement, I talk about people living more productive, prosperous, and meaningful life.
Yeah.
That's what my work is about. How do I help people across the board, whether you're the CEO or a person just beginning? We're trying to do things in a way that gives you value, meaning in your life, and you own it. You earned it. That's the other thing too. It's not about deserving it. You hear that word thrown around all the time. I deserve this. You got to go out and earn it. That's the word you don't hear much of anymore. You got to earn it. And when you earn it, this is the thing I think people don't understand is when you earn it, nobody can take it away from you.
Yeah.
It belongs to you and no one else.
Couldn't agree more. I've said early on in podcasts, I am anaphylactically allergic to entitlement. I want on our teams, no way. You exhibit a smidge of that, we're going to have a discussion. You exhibit it twice, I don't think we're working together anymore.
Yeah.
It becomes carcinogenic for high-performing teams in ways that are really tough to measure. It's just something you see far too often after the fact. And then you got a real problem to clean up. And sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. I just don't want anything to do with entitlement. It doesn't work for high-performing teams.
Yeah, I agree. I've been blessed. I've had some incredible podcast guests.
Yeah.
People who have gone through unbelievable challenges. One, Nikki Ballou, an Iranian refugee during the time the Shah fell, emigrated to Canada, is now one of the most high-performing coaches in all of Canada. Another woman, Naomi, who at 27 years of age was a single mom, 4 children, had no money. And today she is one of the top designers of medical spaces in the country, headquartered in New York. I just published one with Arius Westerberry and another man whose parents were both incarcerated at the same time. Not once did I ever hear the term or a sniff of the term, I'm a victim.
Yeah.
They just got up the next day and figured out what they had to do. And today are incredibly successful CEOs running multi-million dollar businesses. Just incredible.
My story along those lines, a fellow named James Kofi Annan from Ghana. He was a childhood slave and worked on one of the big lakes fishing at 6 years old. He didn't have friends because they all died. Through an organization called Many Hopes, a charity, I was introduced to him, and he was up in our area, took him for dinner. Took our 2 boys, my wife, with some friends for dinner. And he told stories about his childhood that were, words don't describe the awfulness. I don't have words to describe it. It was as bad as it gets in that a human could endure. No victim. Just like you said, wasn't a victim as a child of that, but he did not maintain that through adulthood. One of the most remarkable hour and a half that I have ever spent in my entire life, bar none.
Yeah. These are the people that teach you about life. They're the people who say, this is the way one moves through life. I think it's very important. Mike, this has been an incredible discussion. I can't thank you enough for being here on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast today. I wish you and your practice and your company the greatest success in the future. Thank you so very much.
Thanks so much, Don. This is so much fun.
Thank you.